A thug gets furious and screams that he couldn't believe they were taking that from him like that. But before he could do anything, he takes a punch so hard that his face turns to the side. With that, the guy falls to his knees on the ground, completely defeated, while the attacker wipes his hand. Seeing that scene, all the other young people present get scared of what could happen. At that moment, sitting in a chair, the boss of that place seems to be thinking about something calmly. He remains thoughtful with his hand on his mouth, analyzing the whole situation before his eyes. Then the man speaks up, saying he will say it one more time so everyone can understand the message well. By the authority of the chairman, he announces that from that moment on, Article 9 of the Oath would be abolished. The man says in a loud voice that the Stray Dog Oath article was completely extinct. This guy is Baek Jae, he the second chairman of the Paljo, and he smiles in a very sinister way. Before adult forces dominated the shadow schools and monopolized all interests, the Paljo, or the Association of the 8 Schools, would recognize independent interest activities. They didn't care if students fought among themselves as long as they followed the rules and elected a leader. Because of this innovative proposal, a war between regions began for all the interests, and thus began an era of violent confrontations between all the students of the schools. All this chaos was quickly resolved by the strongest of the actives, the powerful Jo Tae-jung. He announced the confrontation ban clause using the authority of the Paljo chairman. And so Article 9 of the Stray Dog Oath was maintained by the moderate Jo Tae-jung. It was finally abolished by the new chairman, the fearsome Baek Jae-hee, who tears up the old oath. Outside a building, someone wonders if Article 9 had really been abolished. A blonde young man thinks that with Jinho leaving, they are already unstable and calls Baek Jae-hee crazy. Talking to a friend, he says he doesn't understand because if Article 9 falls, not even Baek Jae-hee's territory will be safe. His partner Seul Chan-young states that this means he is confident he can take over all of Seoul. The guy with glasses says that for now, they should worry more about the Danseong faction in Guro, which is their neighbor. He continues saying they are more dangerous than Baek Jae-hee across the river, especially the leader Choi Jae-young. Hearing this, the blonde calls him a jerk and says he knew Jinho was out and was just waiting for a chance to attack. Chan-young agrees and says that now he will attack openly, so they need to prepare for the fight. The other guy looks at his cell phone and gets irritated with that scumbag Jinho who doesn't reply. In such a critical moment, Chan-young wonders where on earth his friend is and what he is doing. 6 months ago, we see the group gathered while someone yells out Jinho's name on a street. One of the companions asks with a worried expression if he was really leaving the group, but Troy's number 1 calms him down, saying there was no need for such a fuss because he would be back soon. He then asks Seul Chan-young to take care of everything and everyone until his return to the team. With a smile, he reinforces the request for his friend to take care of Troy for him while he is away. Troy, having weaker power compared to other regions, wasn't checked by the nearby schools. This happened not only because of Article 9 of the Stray Dog Oath, which prohibited confrontations, but also because Yoon Jinho, with his incredible skills, was holding the front line alone. Back in the present, someone runs desperately up the stairs towards the 2 guys' room. A group member bursts into the place shouting for Chan-young with a face of pure panic and despair. He warns that right in front of Mangacap, the scumbags from the Danseong faction appeared to attack. Chan-young is shocked by the news and can't believe what he heard. He wonders how the enemies managed to get there so fast for the attack. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a tattooed guy asks if his new nose looks good. His friend answers yes, and he comments that Dr. Park was worth the money spent. Then the white-haired man stands smoking outside along with his gang. At that moment, a delivery man struggles up the stairs carrying a heavy box. Arriving at the top, he finds the delinquents completely blocking his path. The gentleman then politely asks them to move out of the way for a moment so he can pass. That is Nam Gaeong-yeol, the number 3 of the Danseong faction, the gang from the south. But the thug says he can't move because it's an important smoking time and tells the man to come back later. The delivery man insists, saying he just needs to put the package inside and it would be quick. With pure malice, one of the attackers kicks the gentleman hard, knocking over the entire delivery. The poor man falls to the ground in pain while all his things scatter down the stairs. He lies there moaning in pain, unable to get up after the cowardly attack he suffered. Nam then steps on the delivery man and asks if he hadn't spoken to him respectfully. A lady comes out of the place scared, but one of the guys stops her from approaching. After that, Jaeong-yeol tells the gentleman to leave, and he goes away with his head down, leaving everything behind. The delinquent says they aren't bad people and are just practicing social justice against unjust victims. He thinks that with Article 9 abolished, they could just take the store, but prefer to force it to close. The gentleman and the woman are devastated, not understanding why all that is happening. Back at the base, Chan-young's group runs as fast as they can to reach the confrontation site. Arriving there, they see the delivery truck and already imagine what is happening there. Seul Chan-young, the Snow Cobra, gets furious and wonders who the heck all those guys are. One of his companions yells angrily that those were the scumbags from the Danseong faction. Nam Gaeong-yeol then greets them with a mocking smile on his face upon seeing his rival. The thug asks why they have such scary faces since they were just exercising their rights. He continues saying that with Article 9 extinct, Troy is done for and that Jinho ran away in fear. With that, the guy tells his adversary to stop giving false hope and choose between surrendering or bowing down. Even explaining everything clearly, he notes that the enemy group continues with an innocent look. Yahello points to his huge gang and asks if they really went there to fight. The villain then questions if they will be okay since they didn't even match their numbers for the brawl. Full of rage, the 4 members of Troy's action squad charge at the enemies, but they couldn't avoid it and were completely overwhelmed by the number of adversaries. One of the henchmen says that was the last one and orders to drag him inside the establishment. The enemy leader holds Chan Yang's head and tells him to admit that Troy ended yesterday. At that moment, the delivery man from before enters the place, and one of the thugs gets confused seeing him. The gentleman says the guy told him to come back another time, so he just obeyed the order. Suddenly, the man lands a powerful kick on one of the gang members, throwing him far away. Yahello is left not understanding why that scumbag was acting in that strange way. He keeps looking shocked at the scene, unable to believe what was happening right in front of him. The villain wonders if that old man went crazy while he lands a punch on one of his henchmen. The blow is so powerful that the thug is thrown back violently without any chance of defense. Seeing that shocking scene, all the other gang members are left open, mouthed and unresponsive. With that, the guy falls to the ground completely knocked out while the red-haired man stares at him. The newcomer then throws the cap on the ground and says he only borrowed it because it was on the stairs. Yahello has a face of pure astonishment and starts stuttering, unable to believe what he was seeing. At that moment, Troy's members are also surprised and happy to recognize their former leader. That was Jinho, Troy's #1 mad dog, who had finally returned to the fight. The Danseong faction members are completely terrified and start trembling with fear. The enemy leader gets furious and screams, asking what the hell those scumbags were doing there. Chan Yang calls for Jinho, happy with his return, and the redhead responds to his call calmly. But the protagonist says they can greet each other later because first, they need to deal with the enemies. With his hand on his friend's shoulder, he says that first, they are going to clear those jerks from the place. Full of hate, Yahello yells for his gang to destroy all their opponents without mercy. One of the henchmen questions if that was really the famous Jinho because he seemed pretty weak. Before the guy could finish his sentence, the redhead already charges with a clenched fist. In the blink of an eye, Jinho lands a devastating blow that throws the thug far away with full force. The protagonist then appears crouching in front of another fallen opponent and jokes about the situation. Then he turns and lands another punch with full force on the face of a surprised delinquent. One of the guys from the enemy gang is in shock and wonders how someone can make that sound. Jinho steps on the guy's face and asks why he is so distracted in the middle of the fight. Wasting no time, he lands a powerful kick on another thug who flies far away. The guy falls knocked out on the ground while Troy's members take the chance to attack. Chan Yang gets excited about the atmosphere of the fight that formed there at the place. With the return of their leader, the situation was completely reversed in just an instant. The protagonist continues his sequence of attacks and lands a strong punch on one more enemy. One of the henchmen gets paralyzed with fear seeing his companion fallen on the ground. Then the redhead lifts his foot ready to stomp on the face of the opponent who is on the ground. He stomps with all his strength on the guy's head, who tries to protect himself with his hand. With an evil smile, he thinks in a group fight, fear spreads fast. He continues his thought saying that it's enough to destroy a few in the front for the fear to spread. That way, the dread spreads to all the other members of the enemy gang. He says it would be disappointing if they threw ashes on his plate just because he disappeared for 6 months. The protagonist states that you can't talk to those scumbags from the Danseong faction. Then he asks Yahello if that nose he has now is fake. Surrounded by fallen bodies, the redhead says it was he Jinho who broke his nose. Yahello gets terrified remembering the past and touches his nose in fear. In this, he recalls the time his nose was smashed by the protagonist in a fight. The enemy leader starts to shake and stutter in pure dread before his old rival. Seeing the guy's despair, Jinho asks calmly if he wants help to remember. A man named Choi Jae-ju is shown while someone orders to give him a clear message. He is the #1 of the Danseong faction, a 7-star level fighter. With a scary smile, Jinho says to warn them that the mad dog Jinho. The protagonist is Troy's #1, but his power level is unknown. He finishes the sentence saying that the mad dog has finally returned to the fight. The involvement of the negotiators in the oath and the recognition of the confrontation clause, which was Article 4, intended to keep conflicts between actives internal. This would facilitate the Palgiohyp's control, and the effect of all that was very clear. Elsewhere, a guy with tattoos asks what they are doing while cutting his nails. He continues sitting very calmly, not caring about the situation around him. A man all bandaged and hurt asks them to continue with the beating. In this, one of the henchmen lands a punch with great force right in the guy's stomach. The man continues being assaulted by several guys while the boss just watches everything. One of the attackers then holds the injured man's head with quite a lot of force. With a smile on his face, the boss orders his henchmen to rip off the guy's bandages. They then remove the bandages, revealing the guy's all bruised and bloody face. The boss calls him Gov and reminds him that now they were a family, which makes everything more tense. He says that when the guy handed over the school badge, his ear was ripped off for nothing. Then the man brings the nail clipper close to the ear of another young man who gets terrified. With pure malice, he wounds the boy's ear, who screams in pain and despair at the act. With that, the young man starts sweating cold from pure fear and pain with the freshly wounded ear. On his knees on the floor, the guy admits he was wrong and apologizes for what he did, but the boss says he seems to be understanding everything wrong and approaches slowly. He warns that Article 9 has been abolished and that the Dansong faction will soon take over Guanak. The man says it was no use ripping his ear off because he wasn't family before. Then the leader puts his cigarette inside a cup with some strange colored drink. With a scary smile, he offers the cup to the guy and orders him to drink it all. The young man is terrified of the disgusting drink but has no choice but to accept. The man speaks that with that drink they will clean everything and start over with a clean heart. This is Choi Jae-ju, the trickster and number 1 of the Dansong faction of Guro. The boss praises him, saying that was a manly attitude, while the young man drinks the liquid. At that moment, the leader's cell phone rings and he answers the call from one of his henchmen. Suddenly his expression changes and he starts screaming furiously with the person on the other end. The scene changes to the Dansong faction's hideout in Guro, known as the Warehouse. There we see Nam Gyeong Yeol's gang completely defeated and bruised after the fight. Choi Jae-ju stares at him with anger and orders the scumbag to lift his head to look at him. The boss asks if he took all those guys to the fight and still managed to lose. Full of hate, he lands a powerful punch on Jaeong Yeol's face, who screams in pain. Being held by the boss, the henchman yells desperately that Jinho finally appeared. Choi Jae-ju is completely shocked and unresponsive upon hearing that unexpected name. The leader is left completely speechless and yells surprise at the unexpected news. The subordinate confirms with fear that the scumbag Jinho came back with full force to the fight. The underling says the rival is an uncontrollable psychopath and asks what they will do now. But the boss grinds his teeth and orders all his men to prepare for the confrontation. He decides the fight will be that same night and that they will go on the attack immediately. It would be the confrontation of Article 4 of the Stray Dog Oath with a live broadcast. The white-haired guy is shocked and wonders if his boss thinks Jinho is just any opponent. He says it's sudden and that if they broadcast the fight, the negotiators will keep an eye on them. The leader grabs him by the shirt and reminds him that the scumbag Jinho just came back today. With an evil look, he asks what would be his enemy's moment of greatest weakness. The subordinate understands the boss's logic and remains silent for a moment, thoughtful. The man states they won't give Jinho time to recover because they have prepared for this day. Even if he is rested, he wouldn't withstand the faction that has been preparing for a long time. The leader seems confident that his gang is more than ready for combat. With that, he turns his back on his men and prepares to leave the warehouse. But suddenly the boss stops and asks with a serious voice who is approaching. A guy in a hood appears in the middle of everyone and apologizes in a very mocking way. He takes off the hood laughing and asks what that story was about, a confrontation tonight. To everyone's surprise, that was Jinho who invaded the enemy hideout alone. The leader of the Dansong faction gets furious, screams, asking how he discovered that place. One of the henchmen tries to attack the redhead from behind with a punch, but he doesn't even flinch. Without difficulty, Jinho dodges and says he is very good at infiltrating places. Then he lands a devastating blow to the belly of the thug who attacked him from behind. Seeing the scene, the faction boss and his men are left open, mouthed at the speed. Then the protagonist knocks down another enemy with a potent punch right in the middle of the face. With a quick movement, the mad dog advances on the other henchmen present there. He says he likes to rip out the enemy's guts first while knocking down one more guy. In the blink of an eye, 3 members of the enemy gang are already fallen on the ground defeated. The enemy leader gets furious and curses the scumbag Jinho for his audacity. He can't believe the redhead managed to knock down 3 of his men in an instant. With a mocking smile, the protagonist explains that he just followed Nam's gang. He continues saying the idiot didn't even realize he was being followed openly. The redhead then orders them to go back and warn that the fearsome Jinho has finally returned. One of the henchmen realizes Jinho did everything on purpose, so they would lower their guard. Suddenly, the warehouse door opens and the rest of Troy's gang appears at the place. Choi Jae-ju and his men are completely shocked by the arrival of reinforcements. Jinho shows a broken lock and says he opened it while the boss was beating his henchmen. With his gang supporting him, he reminds them that Baek Jae, he abolished Article 9 so there are no rules. With an evil smile on his face, the protagonist asks if they are ready for the fight. The Dansong faction boss grinds his teeth in hate and calls on Jinho's name. The faction leader says he doesn't understand Article 4, because they are the ones who make the proposals. He continues saying that someone with only 3 school badges doesn't have the right to challenge him. But suddenly the protagonist throws something on the ground, leaving all enemies shocked. The school badge is the symbol of a school leader and represents dominance over it. When someone has 5 or more badges, the association considers them the district leader. With 5 badges, it is possible to request a confrontation against another district, and the boss is shocked. The redhead says the enemy pretended not to care but was checking the others' badges. He says he collected some badges alone and asks if the rival has anything else to say. The henchman reminds them that the Nam gang caused problems first, so they also have justification. With that, the protagonist orders his friend Park Bo to turn on the live broadcast of the fight. The stream starts and the number of viewers rises quickly while everyone prepares. The redhead warns that now neither of them can retreat because everyone is watching attentively. Following tradition and the oath, he makes the official proposal for the confrontation between them. He asks if the enemy wants a leader battle where only the 2 face each other, or if they prefer individual battles with the Mad Dog Yoon Jinho against the trickster Choi Jae-ju. With an evil smile, he says that if they don't like any of the options, there is still another one. Meanwhile, the live broadcast catches fire with everyone anxious for the return of the confrontations. The redhead then suggests a group fight with the Danseong faction with 7 and Troy with 5 badges. Elsewhere, a woman comments that it had been a long time since she saw a broadcast like that. She orders to put it on the projector, and we see Seocho's number 1 Apollo Leon Sang. Elsewhere, we see someone with a bloody hand after a fight and questioning himself. That is Yeo Min Jun, Sampa's number 1, and he wonders what the confrontation has to do with him. Meanwhile, someone watches the live broadcast on their cell phone with great attention. With his back to the camera, a man says the fight between the two factions has finally begun. This is Baek Jae-hee, the chairman of the Paljuhyup, and he calls the fighters insects. Back at the warehouse, the fight format is the battle of leaders with the badges at stake. The two teams stare at each other ready for the start of the bloody confrontation for supremacy. Each side chooses 3 representatives to fight in a format where the winner continues. It was Choi Gaeong-ju who proposed this format, and he knows there is no turning back. He thinks Troy depends only on Eun Jinho and plans to tire him out with the first 2 fighters. But it seems the Danseong faction leader's plan won't go as expected. The first fighter for Danseong is Nam Gaeong-yeol, but he is attacked by surprise. A blonde guy hits him with a sequence of punches and says he needs a beating. On the broadcast, everyone is surprised and comments that Troy's fighter is very good. This is Yang Jong, Sig Troy's first fighter, and he taunts his fallen opponent. The guy from Dansong begs him to stop and worries about his newly operated nose. But the blonde doesn't care and continues the sequence of blows with a powerful kick. The faction leader gets furious and realizes that if they continue like this, they will lose badly. With that, Nam Jaeong-yeol falls to the ground completely defeated and moaning in pain. The boss then screams with rage and orders the scumbag to stop writhing on the ground. With a kick to the henchman's face, the boss screams for him to be crushed without mercy. The blonde from Troy then asks who will be next and calls Choi Jae-ju to the fight. But the enemy leader refuses and says that from number 2 onwards the fight will be for real. Then he calls out loud the name Stone Buddha for the next confrontation. One of Troy's members is shocked and wonders if that was the Stone Buddha from Garaibong. His companions comment that he destroyed 3 schools in Guro and then simply disappeared. With a smile on his face, the protagonist seems very interested in the new opponent that appeared. In this, the enemy gang opens a path for the new fighter who approaches slowly. Everyone is impressed by the size of the guy who is simply huge and intimidating. That is Kwon Song-won, the Stone Buddha and the second fighter of the Dansong faction. In the live broadcast, everyone goes crazy with the appearance of the Stone Buddha and his size. Jinho's friend explains that he tried to unify Guro but was stopped by the Dansong faction. He continues saying that the enemy gang's style is to attack in a group, so not even he could handle it. The boss then orders his fighter to tear the opponent apart, and he agrees without problems. One of the blonde's companions calls him Yankee and says the situation doesn't look good at all. Jinho tells his friend to fight moderately and get out, because if he went first the fight would already be over. But the fighter says that won't work and asks if he wants to get scolded by Chan Young again. With that, Stone Buddha approaches and the narrator says that trusting subordinates is a leader's skill. The blonde thinks the guy dominated 3 schools, but Eun Jinho was a monster of another level. Then Stone Buddha stares at his opponent with a serious look and prepares for combat. Yankee stares at his opponent and wonders if all the rumors about him are just exaggeration. The Stone Buddha, on the other hand, remains silent, just observing him with a serious look. Troy's fighter thinks big guys are slow and plans to dodge to accumulate blows, but before he could react, he is hit by a devastating punch right in the middle of the stomach. Completely shocked by the speed, the blonde-haired guy doesn't even understand what happened. With the force of the impact, the young man is thrown back violently without a chance to defend himself. Seeing that scene, Jinho screams desperately the name of his friend fallen on the ground. The Danseong faction leader gives an evil smile, satisfied with the result of the confrontation. Fallen on the ground, Troy's fighter realizes the fight ended with just a single accurate blow. One of his companions gets furious with the defeat and calls him a stupid jerk. On the broadcast, viewers comment that not even Eun Jinho could handle that weight. Chan Yan then steps forward and orders his companion Lee Jo Chan to get out of the way. He takes off his glasses and introduces himself as the second fighter while the stream gets tense. While rolling up his sleeves, it is revealed that before Eun Jinho's arrival, he was the symbol. The guy with glasses was known as the symbol of strength in Gwanak before his leader appeared. Wasting no time, the two fighters stare at each other and begin a contest of brute force. On the broadcast, everyone is shocked by his courage to fight force against force. Even with the weight disadvantage, Troy's fighter manages to push his opponent back. With great difficulty, the guy continues to exert force, grinding his teeth with the effort. Suddenly, the Stone Buddha's grip loosens, and he seems to be at a disadvantage in the confrontation. With impressive strength, Chan Yang starts pushing the big guy back. He is shocked to be pushed and wonders if that scumbag was even human. Taking the chance, the guy with glasses lands a powerful headbutt on the opponent. With the impact, Stone Buddha stumbles back, dazed by the pain of the blow. Without giving the enemy time to recover, he already prepares a punch with all his strength. The two then start exchanging brutal blows, and the stream goes wild with the scene. Troy's fighter lands a devastating uppercut right on the giant adversary's chin. Viewers comment that the two are crazy alphas, and that someone is going to get hurt bad. But the big guy doesn't flinch and retaliates with a potent punch right on his rival. The enemy leader comments that the Stone Buddha has the crushing advantage in the fight. Jinho watches attentively and knows that exchanging punches like that is very risky. That shows Chan Young's firm will not to retreat in any way. The Stone Buddha also doesn't give up and continues the exchange with a determined look. With the strength left in them, the two prepare one more punch for the final attack. Then the two hit each other at the same time in a powerful and devastating double blow. The giant's punch hits Troy's fighter's face squarely with great force, but the blow from the guy with glasses also hits the enemy, leaving him dazed. With that, the Stone Buddha stumbles back, almost falling to the ground without balance. Troy's fighter also can't withstand the impact and starts falling back injured. Without strength in his legs, he finally collapses to his knees on the ground exhausted. On the broadcast, everyone comments that Stone Buddha managed 2 victories and Guanak is done for. Troy's member is shocked to see the defeat and stammers the name of his fallen friend. Meanwhile, the Dansong faction leader starts laughing in a completely insane way. He then asks Troy's members if they really thought they could win. Stone Buddha gets up and says they won't make it past him. At that moment, Jinho puts his hand on his friend's head and calls him his shy boy. With a smile, the redhead tells his companion that he fought very well and that it's enough. He then asks Bo Yun to take him to the back and the guy agrees with the order. The protagonist stretches and says his boys aren't good at fighting but have courage. With a smile, he asks if it isn't true and introduces himself as Troy's third fighter. The enemy boss says no matter how much of a monster Jinho is, he will be finished after the fight. With that, he orders his fighter to finish the job, and the big guy just watches in silence. The redhead then approaches his opponent and with a smile calls him to fight. Wasting no time, the protagonist charges and delivers a punch with all his strength. But to everyone's surprise, the Stone Buddha manages to hold the blow with one hand. Despite having blocked the attack, the big guy is shocked by the force of the impact. Jinho smiles and says he thought his opponent was an incredible fighter but was mistaken. He calls him annoying and starts twisting the giant's hand with absurd strength. With that, the Stone Buddha starts screaming in pain, unable to believe what was happening. The redhead continues the movement and calls the opponent annoying while he screams in pain. Troy's members are left open-mouthed, unable to believe what they were seeing. With his hand on the opponent's shoulder, the redhead jokes, saying he was actually kinda cute. The enemy boss screams furiously and orders the scumbag Stone Buddha to attack. With a war cry, the big guy charges with a punch full of hate, but the protagonist faces the attack with a confident and mocking smile on his face. Without difficulty, the redhead dodges and lands a devastating uppercut right on the giant's chin. The protagonist's fist closes with full force ready for the final and accurate blow. In the blink of an eye, the punch hits the opponent squarely, who has no chance of defense. The impact is so strong that the Stone Buddha is thrown back completely knocked out. Seeing the scene, the Dansong faction leader is in shock and starts sweating cold with fear. Big guy falls back unconscious while Jinho steps away calmly from the spot. All members of the enemy gang are paralyzed with fear seeing the defeat. The boss can't believe it and wonders shocked if that was really with just one blow. He can't accept that the tough Stone Buddha was defeated with a single punch. The protagonist then turns and asks the rival with a smile if he was afraid. Full of hate, the faction leader calls him a scumbag and grinds his teeth in rage. The Dansong faction of Guro has a total of 7 badges in its power now. The redhead mocks and says the boss is busy so he should come to the fight. Troy of Guanak possesses 5 badges and the protagonist orders the rival to appear soon. On the broadcast, everyone comments that Choi Jae-young's mental state was completely destroyed. The boss says they lived different lives and that the protagonist is just a kid. He continues saying that while Jinho was playing, he was already dominating all of Guro. But the redhead starts laughing at the enemy's face, finding all that very funny. He mocks saying the guy talks like a gangster but splits the bill at dinners. With that, the protagonist's friends try to hold back laughter at the bombshell revelation. Jinho then continues with his verbal attack and makes a very serious accusation against the rival. He says the boss steals even the money the negotiators give to the kids. The protagonist reminds that he pretends to have no money while ripping off the boys' salaries. With that, he speaks that the fake clothes were bought with the gang's money. One of the boss's henchmen hangs his head, confirming that all that was true. The enemy leader gets irritated and says he is no longer the same as before while showing the shirt. But the redhead laughs and says those clothes don't suit him and that it's not over yet. Then he calls for Park Bo and orders him to play yesterday's recording. In the chat, everyone comments that the protagonist really came prepared for the fight. Park Bo Yun, the gossip collector, grabs his cell phone and prepares for the attack. A recording of a girl named Yeli starts playing, exposing the faction boss. The chat gets excited and wonders what else the protagonist has kept up his sleeve. The enemy leader is shocked to hear the name and realizes he is completely screwed. Jinho confirms it's Yeli, whom he dated for a month before she moved. In the recording, the girl complains about the grammatical errors and the sick jealousy of the ex-boyfriend. The boss gets furious while the stream comments he was socially destroyed by the rival. With his body all tattooed, the enemy leader stares at the protagonist with pure hate in his eyes. He grinds his teeth and says the scumbag Jinho has completely crossed the line. The man spits on the ground and orders the redhead to stop talking and just come to the fight. On the broadcast, everyone comments that in a one-on-one, the protagonist is much stronger. But the protagonist doesn't flinch and calls his opponent a filthy saliva producer. Full of hate, the enemy leader pulls a blade and screams he's going to finish the redhead. The protagonist's friends are shocked and one of them screams that the scumbag grabbed a weapon. The villain thinks the stream quality is bad so the weapon won't show up right. With that he charges, but the redhead holds his arm with incredible speed. The protagonist then wonders if the guy is going to start the confrontation with an attack like that. Wasting no time, he lands a slap with all his strength right on his opponent's face. On the stream, everyone laughs at the boss who got beaten even using a weapon to attack the rival. The enemy leader stumbles back with a bruised face and bleeding from the mouth. Then the redhead twists the adversary's hand with force, who screams in pain with the movement. The protagonist calls him annoying and says his grip was bad while the other screams. The villain then grabs a piece of wood on the ground to continue with his attack. With a scream, he charges and tries to hit the protagonist with a strong blow, but the redhead dodges easily and the improvised weapon hits only the ground. Without giving the rival a chance, he already prepares a punch to counterattack with everything. The redhead lands a devastating punch right in the enemy leader's stomach, who kneels in pain. With the blow, the faction boss falls to his knees on the ground holding his belly with great force. Bleeding from the mouth, the villain moans in pain, completely incapacitated by the protagonist's attack. Jinho then stares at him and asks mockingly if he didn't have anything else to show in the fight. The guy on the stream says that was the first confrontation and that the viewers were expecting a lot. Even wounded, the enemy leader leans on the wood to try to get up and continue the fight. With pure hate in his eyes, the faction boss stares at his opponent and calls him a scumbag. Full of rage, he charges screaming he will finish the redhead no matter what, but the protagonist breaks the wood with just one punch, leaving the aggressor without his weapon. The faction boss is completely shocked and unresponsive seeing his weapon being destroyed. With a smile, the narrator says that what happened next wasn't a real fight, but rather a one-sided beating by the fearsome Jinho against his desperate opponent. The protagonist continues the beating on the rival, who can no longer even defend himself from the blows. The sound of punches echoes through the warehouse while the Danseong faction leader is brutally assaulted. The mad dog then closes his fist with force, ready to deal one more powerful attack. Without mercy, he lands one more punch with everything right on the enemy boss's face, who flies far. With the impact, the villain falls to the ground completely defeated and without any chance to retaliate. One of the henchmen is shocked and wonders if the protagonist was really a human being. Another member comments that he dominated a dirty fighter like Gyeongju without any difficulty. The redhead then stands over his fallen rival while the stream comments the fight is over. Fallen on the ground, the Danseong faction boss breathes with difficulty, completely finished, but he gets up and asks if the redhead really thinks he won while the stream comments about him. The villain threatens, saying he will follow him at night and completely destroy his face. He extends the threat to the protagonist's friends, who thanks him for having gotten up. With a scary look, Jinho says he can now show his secret technique he was hiding. In this, he shouts the name of the move Mega Drive V Kick, and the stream finds the name quite embarrassing. One of the redhead's companions looks at a device surprised by what he was seeing there. The device shows an old game and Jinho asks if his technique wasn't truly incredible. Then the protagonist jumps in the air and shouts the name of his move, the powerful Thunder Kick. With an evil smile on his face, he stares at the enemy on the ground and says goodbye coldly. Then the mad dog comes down with a devastating kick straight to the head of his fallen opponent. The blow hits squarely and the faction boss is thrown back with absurd force. With his face all bruised and bleeding, the villain is completely unconscious after the kick. The enemy leader's body flies through the air without any control after the redhead's final attack. He finally falls to the ground defeated, and the stream comments that Jinho is strong and the rival is weak. The protagonist's friends comment that even with a ridiculous technique, he seemed pretty cool. His companions just watch the scene in silence, impressed by the fight. Someone says that despite the redhead's light actions, his clothes didn't match him at all. One of the gang members is shocked and comments on the protagonist's overwhelming skills. Jinho then stares at the defeated enemy because he was in a different power dimension. One of the henchmen says he was a monster of another level he had never seen before in his life. The redhead then recalls how the boss pretended not to have money while stealing the boys' salaries. He continues saying that the luxury clothes were bought by exploiting the gang's own members. The faction members realize that the one who understood them wasn't their leader, but rather that monster. With that, the protagonist's friends give a sigh of relief that everything worked out in the end. Chae-yeom thinks that deep down he knew he didn't need to worry about that guy. Because in the end, the one standing there in front was Jinho himself in person. With a smile on his face, the redhead asks what the friends from Guro were doing standing there. He then orders calmly and mockingly for everyone to open a path for him to pass. The Danseong faction members are left unresponsive and afraid of what could happen to them. The narrator explains that in tradition, the loser must take off their clothes and put them on the ground for the winner. That should be a humiliating moment, but strangely the Danseong faction didn't feel that way. On the contrary, they seemed even excited with a strange sense of expectation in the air. One of the members thinks the redhead not only won the fight but also turned their hearts to him. The protagonist takes the badges and says they are heavy, acting like a true king. The scene changes to another location, a building with the number 4 very big in front in Seoko. A man sees the end of the stream and asks if Yun, Song won't say anything because Jinho will come after them. His companion seems calm and says that well, their leader had other plans for that day. He reveals that Un Song, the leader of that group, had gone to the Jamel School Arts Festival. The other guy is shocked and calls him a jerk because he didn't believe that crazy story. He gets furious because the Jamel Art School was right in the middle of Sampa territory. The other guy says he tried to stop his boss but he wouldn't listen at all. It turns out the leader went there just because the girls in that place were very pretty. One of the dancers gets distracted because she can't focus on the choreography with such a handsome guy watching. Her colleagues also wonder who the white-haired girl is and if she wouldn't be a celebrity. Someone in the audience recognizes him and says he is only acting like that because the article was abolished. With a smile, the guy comments that he is ignoring Songpa and will be destroyed by Yeo Min Jun. Sitting in the audience, the leader of Seocho thinks the festival wasn't as good as the rumors said, but with a smile he admits the show wasn't bad and introduces himself as Apollo Leon Song. Back at the hideout, we see Lee Jo Chang, the crazy one who just wants to wash his dirty face. He yawns saying he overslept and his friend Yankee tells the jerk to shut his mouth. The Yankee Yang Jong-suk gets irritated because he really doesn't like that kind of attitude. Then we see the defeated soldiers eating at the same table, and he complains about the situation. In this part, Bo Yun the gossip collector approaches and asks why his face is like that. The blonde then kicks him and says that scumbag heard very well what Jinho said before. In a flashback, the protagonist talked about who they should recruit for the new team, and also about who they should expel because the answer to that was quite obvious to everyone. Chan Yang and the others just nod because they understood the plan perfectly. Back in the present, the blonde says he heard but that whole situation was very annoying. He gets even more irritated seeing Guro's former number 2, the stone Buddha Kwon Song Wan. The blonde complains about the amount of food the guy ate and says he doesn't like him at all. But Bo Yun warns that Chan Yang ordered to recruit him anyway and the blonde is shocked. The reason was quite simple actually because the stone Buddha fought very well and was strong. Yankee is completely frustrated with the situation but can do nothing against the order. The big guy then says he is full and also doesn't like that scumbag one bit. But even with complicated feelings, the Dancyeong faction assimilated to Troy quickly. One of the members thinks that just yesterday they were fighting, and now they even received food. Another wonders how much all that cost, since they hadn't even confirmed the union with Gwanak. They remember their old boss ate like a king while giving them dog food. One of them then starts to wonder if that new life wouldn't be much better for everyone. Suddenly one of the former faction members seems to have a realization and is shocked by something. He realizes that person in front of him was someone who could never be defeated. A figure in the shadows says one must find sincerity with even more sincerity. With his hand extended, he states that was just a matter of pure courtesy. Jinho then seems to think of his old leader and calls him Tae Jung in his thoughts. Elsewhere, the protagonist interrogates the big mouth from Guro who denies knowing anything. The redhead questions if he is sure and the guy says if he doesn't know nobody in Seoul knows, but he soon spills the beans and tells that Tae Jung's whereabouts were a mystery to everyone. The protagonist then pinches the informant's cheeks and calls him Big Mouth with mockery. Then he asks if the two were friends and scolds him for not using respectful titles. The informant is left with his face all scribbled and agrees not to erase it until the next day. The redhead then turns to Chan Young and asks how many badges they possess now. The guy with glasses explains that with the 5 they had plus the 7 from Guro they have 12 in total. With this information, the protagonist seems to have a plan and is thoughtful for a moment. In this he asks if with 12 badges they can't already go straight after Bake J. His friend is completely shocked and unresponsive to the crazy question he just asked. One of the members says he is crazy and should at least have a chance before talking nonsense. He explains that Bake J has 53 badges and is on another level, but the redhead ignores the warning and says he is going to cross the river making his friend scream his name. With that, all the companions scream for someone to catch Un Jinho before he runs away. Elsewhere, a guy in the audience of a show is shocked and asks if the other went crazy. At the Jamal Art School in Sampa, everyone wonders why a guy is going up on stage. One of the dancers thinks he must be crazy but wonders how someone can be so handsome. Another girl is also enchanted by the guy's beauty and wonders who the heck he is. That is Lee Young, Seocho's number 1, and he approaches one of the dancers. The girl gets nervous and wonders if he is coming towards her to talk to her. With a smile, he puts his arm on the girl's shoulder and calls her friend calmly. He then asks if she is Choi Jae-young's ex-girlfriend, the famous Yelly. The girl denies nervously, but the guy shows his cell phone to her with something quite shocking. On the cell phone, a photo shows her ex-boyfriend all beaten up, and he calls it an update. With that, the girl screams in fright seeing the shocking photo of her ex-boyfriend all hurt. Suddenly, a guy appears with his gang and screams angrily Lee Eun-sung's name. With that, the group of delinquents surrounds the blonde-haired guy and the girl in the middle of the place. But Seoko's leader stares at the newcomer with a calm smile without looking worried. The man gets furious and says the invader not only crossed territories, but is causing trouble. With a mocking smile, he apologizes and says he just wanted to show the news to Yahello. Full of rage, the aggressor charges at the blonde with a punch ready for attack. But the invader covers the girl's eyes and tells her not to look at anything ugly that happens. In a quick movement, he lands a powerful kick right on his surprised opponent's face. Seeing that shocking scene, all the other gang members are left open-mouthed and unresponsive. With his face bleeding, the aggressor is completely dazed, not understanding what happened. Fallen on the ground, the guy wonders what the heck hit him while the other protects the girl. The blonde then apologizes to the guy, saying he got scared because they advanced suddenly. With a smile, he warns he doesn't want to fight and was already leaving that place there. The gang members are completely paralyzed with fear, not knowing how to react to that. Then he simply turns his back and walks away with the girl, leaving everyone behind. Already outside, he calls the girl's name, who gets all embarrassed with the situation. With a smile, he says she is prettier in person and asks for her contact without beating around the bush. Still awkward with the situation, the girl just nods and accepts the request. The scene then changes to a closed door in a place that seems completely abandoned. On the cell phone, the message says they are still passed out and will notify when they wake up. A young man explains to his boss that Siocho's leader Leon Song invaded and caused the confusion. The black-haired man then asks with a serious voice where Hyesok Jin was. His subordinate replies that since April he does the collections alone, and the attack occurred while he was away. With that, the boss takes a small black package from inside a box with several other identical ones. Then he puts the content of the package in his mouth and orders the other to continue with the explanation. The henchman watches and wonders if his leader was really chewing that raw like that. The boss says he doesn't think the rival wanted to start a war, but was just seeing Yahello. Then he spits the empty package on the ground after having consumed all its content. The leader of that group remains completely thoughtful about the whole situation that happened. The subordinate explains that Yahello is a girl from Guro and doesn't know the enemy's real intention. With that, the leader decides they should at least prepare for whatever comes next. The henchman says that if Suk Jin goes to Siocho, the collections will be covered, and the boss agrees. Suddenly, the subordinate is shocked to hear a familiar voice and wonders whose it was. The boss then bends over several empty packages on the ground and orders them to prepare. That group was the Black Lotus of Sampa, the #1 with 9 badges in its power. That was Yeo Min, Jun the Weeper, who was ready for the confrontation that was to come. Elsewhere, we see Apollo Leon-sung with a confident and serene smile on his face. His group was the Royal Son of Siocho, the #1 with a total of 15 badges.